The following program is recorded live and intended for all audiences.
Coming this fall, the Barroom Network presents two fired-up Bears fans. They are ready to rumble on the Bear Debate.
Hey everybody, it's Aldo Gandhi, and I just want to let you know really quickly that our swag shop is reopened. DeepDishTees.com is where you go, and that's tees with T-E-E-S. Clever name, guys. They're the new home of our merchandise. You can get t-shirts, you can get caps, you can get coffee mugs, you can get hoodies, you can get all sorts of good stuff, and you'll help out the bar room with the purchase. So head over to DeepDishTees.com.
Hey, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to Fantasy Football Goon. I am your host, Joe Mandel, and I'm joined by the man with the plan. It's Adam Shawm. We're here to help you with your fantasy football lineups and much, much more. Adam, how you doing today, bud?
I'm doing great, Joe. Good morning. How are you?
Doing well, man. It's a beautiful Sunday morning. Football is just a couple hours away. And we're going to help everyone get their lineups locked and loaded to get that W in week 2.
Let's do it.
But before we get going, Adam, I want to talk about a couple things, from the week before and kind of see where we're going here. So the first thing I want to lead off with here is talking about the Green Bay meltdown last week. Fantasy owners have been panicked. Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Jones and company, they didn't look so hot last week. But I think you and I are coming from the same place here, that we don't feel that people should panic. Adam, what are you thinking, man?
No, you can't panic with a team like that. I mean, obviously, we know how teams start out. Sometimes the week one can be awfully fluky. Aaron Rodgers played none in the preseason. It was a rusty game for him to start out, and it's just going to go that way sometimes in week one. Things should turn around in week 2 against a really good matchup they got coming up that we'll talk about later. And I wouldn't panic about any of my Packers players right now. If you do, hit me up in our league.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been seeing him be traded in so many leagues. Don't hit that panic button. Just ride it out. It's okay.
Yeah, it's 1 week. You can recover.
Yeah, unless you're in guillotine, then you're probably chopped. But that's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
But we're going to keep on chugging here. I want to talk a little bit about scary Terry McLaurin. He looked amazing on Thursday night. I mean, you can't put anything around it. The guy is just an absolute beast. Now, the real question is he a top 10 fantasy wide receiver? To me, he is, man. He's QB proof. I tweeted it out the other day during the game. Adam, I got to get your thoughts on scary Terry, because he's scaring me because I have him in 2 leagues and I love it.
Oh, man, me too. You can fire him up every single week. He's a must-start wide receiver, no matter who the quarterback is. Like you said, you saw a lot of people worried when Fitzpatrick went down, and even I had a slight concern about it. But you saw with Heineke in there, every play he was just looking for him. As soon as anything broke down, where's scary Terry? And Terry, he's not a huge guy, but you saw him go up and get the ball. I mean, he just makes every play there is. We saw that amazing catch in week 1.
Oh, yeah.
He's in your lineup every week the rest of the year. Definitely top 10.
He is, and you got to treat him like a top 10. if someone wants to trade for him, you better be getting a lot in return, because I'm not letting him go in any of my leagues personally right now.
Absolutely
So,
no way.
but another offense that was firing on all cylinders last Sunday, was the Cardinals. You had Kyler Murray and company, Chase Edmonds, looking like they are the real deal. Kyler Murray is a guy that I've been high on all offseason because he does it all in fantasy. He runs with his legs. He has a killer arm. The only thing against him is he's short, but Russell Wilson has proven that doesn't matter. Kyler Murray, to me, is the number one fantasy quarterback again this week, and I think he's going to finish the number one fantasy quarterback this year. Maybe I'm crazy. I feel like he's this year's Josh Allen that's going to just blow up. Do you think this offense, Adam, for the Cardinals is real? We know their defense showed up last week, but is their offense as good as advertised?
I think it is, Joe. We've seen Kyler take a step last year, and like you just said, I think he's taken that huge step this year, like we saw from Josh Allen last season. With weapons like Hopkins out there, Christian Kirk, we've seen him produce. Even AJ Green got some targets out there, and if nothing else, he's going to draw a little bit of attention. And like you said, Kyler's size doesn't really be much of an issue because he rolls out of the pocket so much and just makes plays on the run with his feet. And his feet are what's going to give him that capability of being the number one quarterback. Like you said, he could surpass Mahomes or Lamar's with the rushing, and he could easily go to number one, and the Cardinals offense is legit in my opinion.
Yeah, and a guy like, you brought up Christian Kirk. This is a guy that had 2 touchdowns. And, he's a guy that I've been talking about for like the last 3 years. I feel like, he's going to break out. He's going to break out. With all these weapons, the addition of AJ Green, of course, you got the Andre Hopkins, maybe that's what he needs now to take that next step. I love Christian Kirk moving forward. He's a guy that I'm targeting if I can try to trade for him. And he's one of those guys that's always cheap in daily fantasy. So Christian Kirk is another name to keep an eye on, because I do think he's going to have some fantasy relevance all year long.
I agree. We've seen him have blow-up games the last couple of years, and this might be the year he gets consistent in the offense with Kyler's growth, and I like him the rest of the season as well.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. I like him too. And, another guy that all of NFL world is really high on right now is Jalen Hurts. These Philadelphia Eagles came out guns a-blazing last week, and I tell you what, they looked really good. And the defense looked pretty good. But most of all, I was really impressed by the play of Jalen Hurts because, he's getting out of the pocket. He's making good throws. He's using his legs. He's doing everything that we thought he could do, to the point where, like, if he continues to do what he's doing right now, he's going to be a top 5 fantasy quarterback for a guy that was, 1, not drafted in some leagues, and 2, taken in the latter half of drafts. Is Jalen Hurts a guy this year, Adam, that you would be comfortable starting every week as your starter?
As of right now, I would feel very comfortable putting him in my lineup today and moving forward. Like you said, the yards he gets with his legs are going to make up for any kind of passing deficiency he has, but we've seen him really grow in the passing game already. He's making good reads. Like you said, he's making throws out of the pocket on the run. He has a great arm. So they have quite a few weapons down there as well. So I think he's going to push for that top 5, as you said, or he's definitely going to be in the top 10 at the end of the year. And these guys like him and Lamar and all these guys are catching up to the Mahomes style with their legs, so these quarterbacks are getting pushed down the list pretty quick by those guys like Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, he's a guy that, I have him as a backup in one league, and I'm tempted behind Justin Herbert. I'm tempted every week to be like, do I plug him in? I obviously can't do it right now, but that's going to be a good problem to have here in a couple of weeks. So hopefully he can stay, as good as possible. And, I'm excited. I'm excited to watch this kid play. And
absolutely,
got comments pouring in from the chat. Travis saying Kyler got him 34 points last week. I mean, you can't go wrong with that. We had a question here from the Games Report. Can James Conner break out after getting 16 carries last week? I wouldn't put it out of the realm of possibility. Chase Edmonds is the guy that I like on that offense, just because of his explosiveness. But I do think James Conner has fantasy relevance as for me, he's like a low end flex play. He could be a guy that, if his carries continue to go up, then yeah, obviously, I'll stay on the bus. But for now, I'm keeping him as a low end flex. Adam, where do you land on James Conner?
I would agree with you, Joe. He's in that flex, low end flex conversation. I also would prefer Edmonds over him due to the passing work a little more. But with this offense moving like it can, there's going to be plays that these guys catch balls inside the 5, and they're going to throw Connor in there, and he's going to get some goal line touchdowns over the course of the season. Probably not a ton, but he's definitely going to have a role in this offense, and he's definitely usable flex in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm on the train there as well. It's a two-headed monster down there, but Edmonds is the guy you want in PPR for sure about that. To piggyback on the Cardinals, Gaines also has a question about their defense. What are your thoughts on the defense after giving Tennessee major problems? Streaming option, or do you pick them over the Browns next week? Thanks, guys. So for me, I do think this Cardinals defense is an elite unit. I mean, obviously they have J.J. Watt now as well. You've seen them just all over the field, especially last week against Tennessee. I know Tennessee's O-line was banged up, but I do think the Cardinals are a quality defensive unit. I think they are a top 10 unit that's warrant of starting every week. Adam, what are your thoughts on the defense of the Cardinals?
I think they're definitely a streaming option. I like them mostly in matchups like you saw last week and even this week, the guys against like Kirk Cousins, these guys that aren't mobile, they're going to be back there in the pocket with Chandler Jones and J.J. Watt coming off the ends. They can do a lot of damage with sacks and help your fantasy team that way. And we know sacks can lead to fumbles and interceptions. So I definitely like streaming them against these less mobile quarterbacks for sure.
Yeah, Chandler Jones, I think we had 4 sacks last week or something crazy like
5,
that.
I think.
5. I mean, Either way, I mean, this guy is unbelievable at this point. And it's going to be an exciting team to watch all year long. I don't think there's any way to get around that. So exciting times down in Arizona. But Adam, let's dive deep into our starts of the week. And we'll just kind of go through, by position for each of us, and we can kind of talk to them a little bit. So, I'm going to go with my quarterback starts of the week. And here I'm going to go with, we talked about Jalen Hurts. I love him against San Francisco. You and I were talking a little bit earlier, Adam, and the fact that, 49ers are injured at corner, and Josh Norman getting the start today, who's been with the team for less than 2 weeks. And as you guys know, he's not the Josh Norman that he was 5 years ago. So I love Devontae Smith going up against him. So, I mean, that's a great matchup right there. So definitely look at Jalen Hurts to have a huge day. Aaron Rodgers with the big bounce back against Detroit. I think he easily throws well over 300 yards with 3 touchdowns. He gets that revenge to show everybody that he's still Aaron Rodgers. And then last but not least, I got to show some love to Joe Burrow. I love him today against the Bears. We saw the Bears secondary get absolutely torched by Matthew Stafford last week. And there's some really quality young wideouts on this Bengals team. I look for Joe Burrow to have a great day against the Bears. As much as it pains me to say it, Adam, I love Joe Burrow this week. He's just outside. I think he's my number 9 or number 10 quarterback in my rankings. Let me double check. I got it pulled up right here. I have Joe Burrow at number 9. Yeah, so I do like Burrow against the Bears this week, but I know it's probably tough pill to swallow as a Bears fan, but it's the truth. Adam, first off, what are your thoughts on those picks, and then we can get into yours.
I love all 3 of those picks, Joe. Unfortunately, I do agree with you about Joe Burrow. He was really impressive in week 1. He didn't look nearly as rusty as I expected and most people thought. Because he moved pretty well. He made a lot of great throws. We saw Jamar Chase break out on week 1 already with him. So, yeah, I like him against a Chicago secondary that we know is highly questionable right now. Jalen Hurts, we saw a great game. We just talked about it a minute ago. Against San Francisco, he's gonna move the ball against those corners, like you just talked about. Josh Norman coming in, Richard Sherman on the other side's been banged up. You got old corners with young receivers for Philadelphia. I like Hurts, and Rodgers should just. I mean, there's no way Rodgers doesn't throw for 300 today and just destroy the Detroit Lions and make up for last week. So these are great picks.
Appreciate Appreciate it, Adam. But let's dive into your quarterback starts of the week. Let's hear about it.
All right. Well, my number one out of this group, and obviously, we know we're starting Aaron Rodgers and Lamar Jackson, all these guys, but in that kind of second, third tier quarterbacks, Justin Herbert's the top guy for me this week against Dallas. I just love the Chargers-Cowboys game. I think we're going to see a shootout, tons of fantasy points in this. I'm starting all my Cowboys and Chargers today. His numbers didn't show it in the touchdown department last week, but he was extremely impressive throwing on the run. He had a couple of bad drops from receivers that would have really boosted his totals. Herbert's just extremely impressive to me. I love his maturity and his play. Tannehill, I think, is going to bounce back this week. I think the Titans are similar to the Packers last week, just a rusty opening week. Seattle's got a pretty tough front seven and run defense, so I think Tannehill's going to have to throw more, and I think A.J. Brown's going to have a big game, and we might see a little bit of improvement out of Julio this week to maybe help people's fears out of the way that went last week. And my last one would be Baker Mayfield. I think Cleveland's going to score a ton of points against Houston today. It could be some of them on the ground with those running backs, but Baker's going to throw it around. That's just the player he is. I look for 30 points out of Cleveland, so I'd fire Baker up.
Nice, man. I love it. A lot of good quarterbacks flying around. And usually I wouldn't tell you to start someone like Aaron Rodgers, but I put him on my list because of the dud that he threw up last week to kind of like, don't overreact, people. Yeah. Still put him in your lineup. He's going to blow things up this week against the Lions, but
don't be scared.
Don't be scared. That's for sure. But before we dive into the running backs, I did want to address someone in the chat asking about running backs. Josh Jacobs is inactive today for the Las Vegas Raiders, dealing with that injury. So that means Kenyon Drake's stock goes way up. I know that O-line's not great, but he's going to catch a lot of passes. So, Adam, I know, we'll probably talk about him a little bit later, but I do like Kenyon Drake this week, and he's going to get a lot more volume now with Jacobs out.
Yeah, absolutely. He got quite a bit of work last week in week one with Jacobs playing, and I believe he caught 5 balls last week, and that's kind of Kenyon Drake's role. But it can only go up a little bit with Jacobs out. However, I think they did announce that Peyton Barber was going to get the lead role, supposedly, which how many times have we seen Peyton Barber score 2 1-yard touchdowns and ruin your running back for you the last couple of years on other teams? So I'm a little hesitant about that because, that offensive line's not very good. Jacobs did not look good. He was only saved by 2 goal line touchdowns last week. So Drake's not bad for in the PPR leagues, but I'd be a little concerned playing anybody else there, especially against Steelers defense.
For sure. The Steelers defense is very staunch against the run, obviously. So anything pass against them is better than the run. So that's why we lean towards Drake if we had to choose one. Before we get to our running back ranks, we had a question here from CJ Williams. Henderson or Hunt this week? Personally, I'm going with Kareem Hunt because of that matchup, against Houston. Not very good against the run. And even though he's not the lead dog, I think he's going to eat a lot today. I think so. For me, I'm going with Hunt because I think he's more likely to score. Adam, where do you land on this?
That's a really close one. Do we know, is Darius Leonard going to be playing for the Colts? I know he was questionable. Have you heard if he's in?
I believe he's still questionable. I have not seen any official. I've been following the inactives list here, and I have not seen anything yet about that.
Well, if Leonard were to be out, I would fire up Darrell Henderson. But if he is playing, I agree with Kareem Hunt because, like I said a minute ago, I think there's a lot of points going to be scored by Cleveland, and Kareem Hunt could easily get a touchdown in this game.
Yeah, Xavier Rhodes is the only inactive so far for that game.
Yeah,
so
I'd probably
we'll
go
pay
Hunt.
attention. Yeah, it's close, but I get Hunt by a hair. So
I agree.
Oh, look at that!
Yep.
Just coming in, Darius Leonard is active for that game. So appreciate the background updates from the man with the plan, Mr. Aldo Gandia. Appreciate that, brother. But so then I definitely would go with Hunt in this scenario. I just think he's more likely to score. But Adam, let's get into our running back starts of the week, and let's just do it. I'll start off with mine here. At running back, look at that, Kareem Hunt. I love him to get lots of opportunities against this Houston offense. This Cleveland team, I think, is going to be up big in this game, and they're going to have to run the ball to drain out the clock. And I think Kareem Hunt's going to be that guy. I think he's going to have a huge day. Kareem Hunt is a must start today. Same with Elijah Mitchell. He was the hot waiver wire pickup from last week. He went absolutely off in his first game, and he was a surprise lead of that 49ers backfield. I expect that to continue this week against the Philadelphia Eagles. For whatever reason, Trey Sermon's in the doghouse. I'm curious to see if he will be active in this game. I would be shocked if he's not, but I still think Elijah Mitchell is the lead dog there. I love him today to get a lot of carries. I say at least 15 touches. And then Jamal Williams, I love him for Detroit against Green Bay this week. He's catching a lot of balls. He's on the field for a lot of snaps. I think he was on almost half of the offensive snaps for a guy that's, being utilized, with some carries, catching some balls. Jamal Williams, to me, Adam, is a guy that is undervalued in fantasy. And I think he's going to do a lot for fantasy owners, especially in PPR leagues. Jamal Williams, it's not the biggest household name out there, but I do think he's going to have a lot of value on this Lions team. So I like the three of those guys. Just curious what your thoughts are on Jamal Williams after his performance in week 1, Adam.
I like Jamal Williams a lot. I think I think him getting shipped to Detroit this year is going to be the best thing that's happened to his career. You look at the offense, it's mostly Hawkinson and then Swift and Williams as the passing game, basically. You saw how many targets they got last week. I would expect more of the same today, and probably for most of the season. They're one of the worst wide receiving cores in the whole league. So that's the three. It's Hawkinson, Swift, and Williams. So I think Williams is going to be a playable flex all year long. I love him.
Yeah, me too. I love him as a flex, and he's a guy that I'm targeting too if I can grab him. There's a couple leagues I'm in that he's not even owned, so he should definitely be on all benches for sure.
No doubt.
So, but let's hear about your running back starts of the week, Adam, and let's see what you got for us.
All right. Well, first off, I like Damian Harris for the Patriots going against the Jets this week. Harris really seemed to have the lead back role last week. He got a lot of carries. We saw Stevenson, who the rookie that a lot of people were somewhat excited about and hoping was going to maybe cut into Harris's load. He made some mistakes in pass blocking. I believe he fumbled as well. Against the Jets defense, I think the Patriots are going to pound that ball, and Harris is likely to get a touchdown that he didn't get last week. I also like Melvin Gordon a lot today versus Jacksonville. Jacksonville defense, we saw Houston run all over them last week with Mark Ingram. So Melvin Gordon, we also saw him break like a 70-yard touchdown last week, and he had some serious speed still. A lot of people are worried Javonte Williams is taking that job, and they're going to split carries. There's no doubt about that. We saw it was close to 50-50, I think, last week, but Melvin Gordon still has that breakaway speed, and he has the passing game work, and he's going to get goal line carries. I'm confident Melvin Gordon scores a touchdown today. Yeah. And my last one would be Najee Harris. A lot of people freaked out because of the bad game he had in week 1. And, the Pittsburgh played against Buffalo in week 1. It was a rough game all around. That was a very tough game for both teams. Najee Harris should break out this week, I think, in this matchup. I look for a ton of carries for him. Hopefully he's going to catch a lot of balls versus that Vegas defense. And I'd fire Najee Harris up everywhere I got. I expect touchdowns out of all three of these guys today.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think Harris has a huge bounce back game. I think he's going to have a big, big, big day today. Melvin Gordon, I still think Jacksonville's absolutely horrendous on defense. He's going to go off. And Harris, for me, could be one of the biggest names in fantasy this week. I think he might catch 10 balls out of that backfield this week. So I'm all in on all three of these guys, Adam. I think they're great choices. And I think all three guys should be in starting lineups all across fantasy world. So nice job there. We do have a question in the chat coming from John Hullinger. He wants to know, should he start DeAndre Swift or Aaron Jones? First off, that's a great problem to have that you only have to start one of them. I'm curious, John, if you're in the chat, if you could tell me who your other starting running back is, because I think Jones and Swift should both be starting. Looking at my rankings at running back for this week, I have Aaron Jones at number 4 and DeAndre Swift at number 11. So obviously 2 top 15 guys there this week. I think both should be starting unless you got someone else that's inside of the top 10. But if I had to choose between the two, I would say Aaron Jones, just because he's going up against the Detroit Lions, who Aaron Jones has been absolutely lights out against his entire career. Not that I don't like Swift. Swift's got a huge target share for that Lions team. I think Swift's going to probably be a top 5 back in fantasy this year too. But this week I'll go with Jones. That's a tough decision. Adam, where you land between these two guys?
I mean, if you can only play one, I would take Jones because, I mean, the touchdown equity's there with the Packers and Jones. But, I'd like to know the other options here because I would want both these guys in my lineup. Detroit's going to be playing from behind, 90% likely, and, he's going to catch a lot of balls.
His other option is Kamara, who's my number 2 start of the week. So, go with Kamara and Jones this week. How you have all 3 of those guys on your roster, that's amazing. So nice work, John. I would go with Kamara and Jones. That's lights out this week. I'm all aboard there.
If you can get Swift in the flex, though, do it.
Yeah, if you can get him in the flex, I like that too. We have another question here from Travis that I'm going to grab before we go on to our wide receiver starts. He wants to know, who would you start out of this group of running backs? Cook, Harris, and Montgomery. Then that changes my flex. I have Schuster, Mooney, and Landry on the bench. All right. Well, how many do you start? Or is he asking for which? I think we got to pick one out of those 3. Well, that's the case. Man, I'm assuming it's Dalvin Cook too. And that's if you're still in the chat, Travis, tell us how many of those we're starting. Is it just one?
Yeah, Dalvin Cook has to be in the lineup.
What's that?
That Dalvin Cook has to be in your lineup if that's, I mean, that has to be who we're talking about, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be Dalvin. You got to have Dalvin Cook, and then if it's between Harris and Montgomery, you're going to go with Harris.
Yes.
But I'm curious who your starters are, Travis. Let us know in the chat, and we'll help you out. And that changes his flex. I like Smith-Schuster today. I do like that matchup against the Raiders. Okay, here's Travis saying, I have Cook, Monty, and Harris all in now. I would take out Montgomery, and then I would put Juju at the flex. I don't know if I'm crazy there. I like Juju against the Raiders today. Adam, I know him probably sound crazy because I think the Bears are going to have to throw a lot in this game. Maybe I'm wrong. Curious your thoughts here about his flex.
I would keep Cook, Harris, and Monty in the lineup, in my opinion. Monty looked so good in week 1. I don't think I could take him out of there.
I can't take that away from him. I know I'm just a little scared by the fact that I expect them. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think they're going to be throwing a lot. Well, he catches some passes too, I guess.
Yeah, so. and they could end up inside the 5, and he gets a cheap touchdown like that, even if it's not all the way down the field. Monty, he may get the touchdown still. There's a good chance of that, I think. I mean, I do like Juju, like you said, and also Jarvis Landry with Beckham still out is a good play as well. But I would play the guaranteed touches with Monty, Cook, and Harris.
That's true. Monty's definitely going to get he should get the touches. I don't want to say guaranteed because the visor man might say differently. But you're probably right with Monty. I have a feeling that Schuster is going to go off against the Raiders today. We'll see. But either way, it's close. But I definitely Cook and Harris. And then, Monty's definitely going to get his touches. So that's probably the safer play. If you want to go for the home run, it could be Smith-Schuster this week. We'll see.
Yep.
But that's kind of where I land on that. But Adam, let's get into our wide receiver starts of the week. And we'll switch things up this time around. Let's lead off with your wide receiver starts of the week. So what do you got?
My wide receiver starts of the week. One of them's coming in that game we just talked about with the Bears, T. Higgins. I love T. Higgins, a player. We saw him last year have a breakout season. We saw him and Burrow already connecting again in week 1 against the Chicago secondary, like we've spoke of already. I expect T. Higgins to catch quite a few balls today and see probably 10 targets. Devontae Smith against those old corners in San Francisco with Sherman and Norman.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy runs routes and is so quick and in and out. I mean, he's going to be open all day, I think, and Hurts and him have that connection already. I look for him to be going to that all day long. My other one would be Mike Williams in that shootout game I expect with Dallas. Herbert likes going down the field to Mike Williams in the end zone, especially. Keenan Allen tends to be that first down possession receiver, the pull me out of crisis receiver. But Mike Williams is that big play touchdown guy for them. And I fully expect Herbert to be looking for him today. He'd be in all my lineups as a flex.
Yeah, no, I like Mike Williams. He looked really good last week. And I think especially against this Dallas defense that could not stop anybody last week from the Buccaneers. And then you could argue that there's more weapons on this Chargers team. It's going to be a shootout. The over and under is set at 55. I'm taking the over. This game is going to be electric. This is what we like to call a fantasy gold game. 100%, both sides of the ball. Dallas, Los Angeles Chargers. You want every fantasy piece of this game that you can get. So I love that, Adam. I love all those picks. So we do have inactives starting to kind of pour in. As we know, Odell Beckham Jr. is out today for the Cleveland Browns. Donovan Peoples-Jones getting the start. I'm looking to see if there's any notable ones. Of course, for the Houston Texans, Deshaun Watson still inactive, probably not expected to play for a while. Same thing with Anthony Miller. I'm looking through all these teams to see if there's anybody else of note. It's pretty. Will Fuller inactive for the Miami Dolphins today. That's another thing I wanted to touch on briefly, Adam, is Will Fuller is back from the suspension, but he's dealing with a personal issue. Not exactly sure what that means or if we should be concerned, but he is inactive for today for the Dolphins. So that's something to keep an eye on from a fantasy perspective, because I know you and I thought Will Fuller was a good value in drafts for where he was coming up. Are you concerned about this personal issue? Because we don't know anything about it. Hopefully it's not something that lingers.
It's a little concerning because I believe when asked about it the other day, the Dolphins really didn't want to comment that it couldn't be for an extended period of time. They didn't say it wasn't. So, it's concerning for sure. Luckily, yeah, he was a late pick. You got him. You didn't have to pay a lot for him if you did pick him. But I really like that. We love Jalen Waddle coming into the season. He had a great game in week 1. And I think that's going to continue to grow and stay that way with Fuller out. It just gives Waddle more targets.
Yeah, no, 100%. Waddle, you're going to see Waddle all day. I think it's going to be a exciting game down there. So that's the big fantasy news so far. And then also I wanted to point out for the Indianapolis Colts, Paris Campbell also inactive today. So look for, Naheem Hines to be heavily involved again. So I love him going against the Rams today. I'm excited about that game as well. Man, there's so many good games today, Adam. I just
really
can't get
is.
enough of them all. It's a great day of Sunday football. I'm excited for that. But let's move out. Actually, there is one more inactive. Jamison Crowder inactive today as well. So that's another big one. I think that's the second week in a row that he's inactive. So
yeah, it is.
If you have Jamison Crowder, keep him on the pine. So that's another one that keep an eye out for. We do have a question from the Tooch. Outlook for Marquez Callaway for the Saints. He's stepping into a role where I think he's going to see some quality targets in this offense with Jameis Winston. I don't think you're going to see Jameis Winston be as good as he was last week all season long. I mean, he was really dialed in with the 5 touchdowns. He looked like a different guy. I know Sean Payton, he's been studying under him. He studied Drew Brees. I do think Callaway is going to be a great value as a flex the whole way this season. I really do. But I think Winston's a guy I'm starting to sleep on a little bit. Adam, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, we know Jameis Winston's not going to throw 5 touchdowns out of 19 passes every week, but
yeah,
I think you can see some growth, though. I think Peyton may be able to eliminate. I mean, if he eliminates half of those mistakes Winston makes, it's going to make a huge difference in Winston's game, and the Saints are going to be really tough to beat. I think he is going to look for Callaway as the season goes more and more. So I think Callaway's going to have a much better game than he did last week, but season long, yeah, I think he can definitely be a flex wide receiver, a low-end wide receiver 3 for your team. I like the guy a lot, and I think just in the preseason you could see him and Winston have a little bit of a connection there.
Yeah, and I want to briefly touch on this game today with the Saints because I think it's a bit of a trap game. Obviously, you're starting your guys like Kamara, your big dogs, but there are 7 coaches for the New Orleans Saints that are inactive in this game because of COVID and their starting center. So I think you got to tamper expectations a little bit for the Saints team today because anytime you lose that much of the coaching staff and you lose your starting center, you're in for a lot of trouble and confusion. Now, do I think this team could probably still pull off this game? Probably, but I think there's a high chance that, the Panthers really stay close with this one and can pull away with it last second at the end. So don't expect too much from the Saints this week because, like I said, 7 coaches is a lot, Adam. I mean, it's a lot to overcome.
Yeah, absolutely. That has to have an impact on the team. You can't lose that many people off the coaching staff and not have an impact. So it will. I don't expect it to go. I mean, I expect the Saints to still pull out the victory against Carolina, but there's definitely an impact there to be made. Luckily, it hasn't spread to any of the players to this point.
Right, exactly. And I realized we didn't get to my wide receiver starts of the week, so why don't we just go ahead and dive into my starts? We're talking about Juju Smith-Schuster. I love him this week against the Raiders. I think you got to fire him up. I think he's going to have at least 1 touchdown and probably close to 100 yards. I love him today with this matchup. Brandon Cooks is another guy. The volume he saw last week was absolutely off the charts. Cleveland's secondary, good, but I still think with the volume that Brandon Cooks is going to get, I expect him to have another big day. Tyrod Taylor loves him. And last but not least, they got Jacoby Myers. This is a guy that is the number 1 wide receiver for this New England Patriots team. Mac Jones is going to be hurling a lot of passes today. And Jacoby Myers, for me, he was on in the field, I think, for 98% of the snaps or something crazy in week 1. And he's been one of the most targeted players in fantasy since he came into the league. Jacoby Myers, for me, is a number 1 fantasy wide receiver on a team for the whole season. So this is a guy for me that I have no problem starting as my wide receiver 2 every week. I know a lot of people are treating him like a flex, but I think this is a legit number 1 guy, especially with Mac Jones throwing him the ball. Mac Jones, of course, one of the most accurate throwers in college football history. So I love Jacoby Myers. I feel like I'm going to have him on my list almost every week, but I really expect big things from him today. So those are my 3 big dogs for the week at wide receiver. Obviously, we're not going to tell you to start Devontae Adams because we don't need to tell you that, but we're telling you about the guys that are kind of flying under the radar, and Jacoby Myers is definitely one of those guys. Adam, what do you think about these 3?
I like all 3 of them, Joe. Like you said, you nailed it about Jacoby Myers. The targets are going to be there. He's the guy in that wide receiver core for the Patriots. Brandon Cooks, he's going to be the guy there. Is Houston. We saw him have a great game last week. I know it was versus Jacksonville, but still, Tyrod Taylor's looking for him. He's by far, far their best receiver. And Juju can make a play this week. I agree. I'm hoping he sees quite a few targets. I hope he can get a little deeper down the field than he has been, but either way, he's going to catch a lot of balls, and I think there is a good chance of a touchdown this week.
Yeah, I think Big Ben's going to get a little bit more time to throw this week against this Raiders team. So right. I think that's going to benefit Juju for sure. So that's why he is one of my starts of the week. Let's dive into tight ends. So, Adam, who are your tight end starts of the week?
Joe, I like Tyler Higbee, first of all, versus the Indianapolis Colts this week. We saw the Rams offense looked great in week 1 versus the Bears. We saw Tyler Higbee pretty involved in that offense. He's not lined up on the line blocking a lot. They're moving him out in the slot. They're moving him to the outside. He's all over the formations. Stafford was already looking to him. He had 5 or 6 catches for 50 or 60 yards the other day, and you could easily see him have a couple of these 2 touchdown weeks over the season and just being a consistent tight end. I think he can finish in the top 5 tight ends, honestly, or right at that mark around the 5-6 spot. I love Tyler Higbee all year. Noah Fant for Jacksonville or versus Jacksonville today. I really like that matchup, especially with Jerry Jeudy going out last week. There's more targets available again. Noah Fant's a safe option for Teddy Bridgewater, who doesn't throw the ball down the field a whole ton. So Fant's a really safe play, I think. And I like a big bounce back from Mark Andrews this week. He really killed a lot of people's teams last week, and a lot of people are pretty down on him, but the Ravens should have to throw quite a bit to keep up with Kansas City tonight, especially probably in the second half. And when they get in the red zone, Lamar's going to be looking for Andrews, and I expect Andrews to bounce back with a really good game this week.
Me too, man. Mark Andrews is a reason he's one of the top tight ends in the league. Yeah. And let's be honest, Lamar loves him. So we saw Lamar do everything he could last week, and they still couldn't, pull things off. So I expect him to have a nice bounce back this week at tight end, because there is a lot of quality tight ends in this league. We just didn't see them all perform last week. I think the trend we will see this year in fantasy is that there are going to be better tight ends. And that's kind of what I want to highlight a little bit in my fantasy starts of the week at tight end. So I'm going to go quickly and take a look at a guy who is back to form at tight end. For me, I'm all about Rob Gronkowski. He looked like vintage Gronk. 2 touchdowns. He's just getting it done. He's manhandling guys. So I'm adding Gronk wherever I can. Obviously, you talked about Tyler Higbee. His target share is off the chain. You cannot get enough of Tyler Higbee. So I don't got to talk more about him. But Gerald Everett's a guy I do want to touch on. He did get a touchdown last week, from Russell Wilson. He's playing against an Indianapolis Colts defense. That's great. But Russell Wilson's going to have to get the ball out of his hands quickly. Gerald Everett's going to be the safety blanket. And he's a big, strong guy that can barrel guys over. So I think this is a Gerald Everett game. He could be the top fantasy tight end if all the cards fall the right way this week. I'm starting him wherever I have him. And this is a guy that a lot of people are sleeping on. I think Gerald Everett's a top 5 tight end this year. Russell Wilson is the difference maker. And he's the most athletic tight end they've had down in Seattle in quite a long time. I know Adam knows I've been waving the Gerald Everett flag all offseason long. And I think that time is going to start to pay off, especially starting this week. So I love Gerald Everett. I love all 3 of these guys. So you're going to fire all of them up where you can. Adam, your thoughts here on Gerald Everett today against Tennessee?
I love him. I love Russell Wilson this week versus Tennessee. We saw what the Cardinals did last week to Tennessee. You can only expect Russell Wilson, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and Gerald Everett all have high chances to get touchdowns this week again. Can easily see Russ throwing 4 touchdowns today. Gerald Everett, he got a touchdown last week. You called it. You may be really onto something here. And he went undrafted in a lot of places. So, places where you can get him and put him in your lineup, the rest of your lineups got a lot of strength to it because you just were able to wait on that. So, I love these picks. I spoke about Higbee and Gronk versus Atlanta. I think all the Bucs receivers are in play today versus Atlanta. So these are good picks.
Appreciate it, man. Yeah, we're here to help the people. And that's I want to make sure everyone's aware that if you want to ask us a question in the chat, we're going to answer it right here live on the air. So get us your questions. Do not hesitate to ask. And then you can also hit us up on Twitter, whether that's directly at our handles, which is I'm at Joe Mandel, Adam's at Papa Bear 816. And then, of course, make sure you follow us at FFB Goon. We answer all questions all year long. So make sure that you hit us up. But we're going to continue with the second half of our show just here in a little bit. We're going to take a quick commercial break from our barroom sponsors, and then we'll be right back to show you our sits of the week.
The Barroom Network presents 2 fired up Bears fans. They are ready to rumble on the Bear Debate.
All right, and we are back after that quick commercial break, and we're going to go right into our sits of the week. So I'll go ahead and lead off with mine. These are guys I'm leaving on the pine, and I know a lot of people are going to call me crazy, but Julio Jones for me is still a sit because I have to wait to see how he's going to fit in this in this Tennessee offense. This is a guy that last week did not come through for people, and I'm waiting until I see it with Julio. You were able to get him a lot later this year than you have in the past. So for me, I'm waiting on Julio. I just can't trust him right now. I know he's an elite talent. I'm not taking that away from the guy. I want to see it happen before I bet my fantasy points on him. So Julio's on my bench. Same thing with Baker Mayfield. I know he's Adam's start of the week, but I'm going to go with him on my bench because I expect them to get up big quick, and they're going to have to run out the clock with their running backs. I don't think it's going to be a day that Baker's going to be able to put up enough fantasy points to make it worth it. I think he's going to have a good, efficient day, but not in terms of fantasy points. So that's why Baker's on my bench. And then, of course, Myles Gaskin. He's a guy that I've been high on all offseason long. He was heavily targeted in week one. He did catch a lot of balls, get a lot of carries out of that backfield. But as we saw, that Buffalo run defense is very staunch, and they did a lot of damage last week. I don't expect Gaskin to have that much to do this week. I just think he's going to get bottled up. So for me, Myles Gaskin is a bench. He's a guy I just can't risk starting this week. So I'm keeping Myles Gaskin on the bench. Adam, what are your thoughts on those three guys?
Yeah, Gaskin's a great call, Joe. We saw what Buffalo did last week against Najee Harris, and if Najee Harris can't get it going against that, I definitely don't feel like the much smaller Myles Gaskin's going to be able to. You know how I felt about Baker Mayfield. I just think Cleveland's going to put up points, and he's still going to score. So I can see your side of it, though, as well. They could get up early and just run it out a lot, which is where Kareem Hunt could have that big game you spoke of. Mm-hmm. Julio Jones, though, I 100% agree with you. That's another great call because we need to see it from him before he's in my lineup. I do expect him to have a much better week this week, but I want to see it happen before I put him in the lineup.
Yeah, man, it's he's got to prove it to me, especially I know you and I are in a guillotine league together, and this is a guy that I just cannot trust right now. You probably don't have a choice to start him or not. If you have him in guillotine, you probably got to fire him up, but he's just so hard to trust right now. And let's get. I'm all over the place. Let's get to your sits, and then we can start talking about some other stuff. So, who are your sits of the week, Adam?
My sits of the week, we'll start out with Mike Gesicki, tight end for Miami versus Buffalo again. Same situation. Buffalo's great defense. Gesicki was not hardly involved at all last week. Gesicki could be one of the tight ends that kind of falls off the map, actually, in my opinion. That's what I'm really looking for this week to see if they get him involved anymore. But right now, he's got to go on your bench if you were planning on using him because he was barely involved, and that's a tough defense. Corey Davis versus New England today. You're talking about Bill Belichick versus a rookie quarterback in their second start. Belichick has a knack for rattling those rookies, so Zach Wilson's probably going to be under a lot of pressure. They also know how to take away your best option, which right now for the Jets is Corey Davis. And I think this is just going to be trouble. I'd be uncomfortable playing him. If you have to play him in a flex, I can understand that because of the target share, but I would try to avoid it at all cost. And my other sit of the week, I would say is Mike Davis versus Tampa Bay, because Tampa Bay's defense is so tough, especially the front against running backs. We saw what they did to Ezekiel.
Zeke.
Yeah, we saw what they did to Zeke last week. You sure as heck can't expect Mike Davis to get it going versus them if Zeke couldn't and Dallas couldn't. So Mike Davis is definitely on my bench this week. Those are my sits of the week, Joe.
I agree on every single one of them. Gesicki especially, he's a guy that I was sleeping on in the offseason. I think you got to tamper your expectations with him, especially, with them adding the talent that they did at wide receiver. Corey Davis, he's going to have a decent game, but not enough to go overboard on. And Mike Davis, for me, he was a huge letdown last week, and don't think Sue's probably going to have like 6 tackles on Mike Davis this week.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. So yeah, I'm in full agreement. If the Falcons have any shot at winning this game, it's throwing the ball. So maybe they actually use their new tight end, Kyle Pitts, who they didn't even barely utilize at all last week. So maybe that's the key to success down there. I don't know what it is, but either way, I love all those. And we got a couple questions here in the chat I want to field. Our buddy Travis, he says he's got Kmet in at tight end with fingers crossed, but his other option is Robert Tonyan. I think if I had to pick between the two, I'd probably start Tonyan against the Detroit Lions because Kmet's not getting the volume just yet. Would you be aligned with that, Adam?
Yes, I definitely would. I would Tonyan to be in my lineup over Kmet, although I do really like Kmet by the end of the season, but I think you got to wait for Fields before Kmet's in my lineup.
Yeah, I'm on board with that too. And I mentioned the Travis here in the chat. Another guy that I've been another sleeper pick for this week and for the rest of the season at tight end is James O'Shaughnessy, the tight end for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Last week he had 6 catches on 8 targets from Trevor Lawrence. I don't think that's something you can sleep on in fantasy. If you get a tight end that's being targeted that heavily, I think this is a guy that you have to add in all formats now. I know nobody's talking about him. So I want to be the first guy to kind of wave the flag on James O'Shaughnessy. So this is a guy available in every league that I'm in, he's available in. And I've seen him pretty much across the board have like a 1% owned rate. So James O'Shaughnessy is a guy you can go pick up. And I think you can get some production out of him, even in bad matchups, because he is that safety blanket. I know, Adam, you and I talked a little bit about O'Shaughnessy earlier, but do you think this is a kid that, could have some fantasy relevance all year long? It's a tough position to pick at.
He very well could. I mean, so somebody's got to produce down there in Jacksonville, and it's going to be probably short passing game like that, safety blanket, like you said. So I could see Shaughnessy having some value over the season. He could definitely be like somebody using a DFS lineup as a cheap tight end, pop in there, get some secure points. But it's going to be interesting to see if him and Lawrence develop a nice little relationship, and he is kind of a go-to guy for Trevor Lawrence as the season goes along. It's definitely a great diamond in the rough.
Yeah, he is. Definitely a diamond in the rough, but it could pay off big time. We got another question here from Davo Mateo. Callaway, Anderson, or Murray as a flex. He said it's half-point PPR. Man, that's some good options there. I'm assuming he's talking about Robbie Anderson. And that's got to be Latavius Murray. Oh, boy. Anderson's got the big playability. Callaway is, obviously just a solid all-around player. And Murray, you don't exactly know how that Ravens backfield is going to shake up this week. I'm between Callaway and Anderson. I guess I'll give it to Callaway because of the matchup. I don't know. Where do you fall, Adam? This is a tough one.
This is a really tough one. I think I would probably lean Callaway as well. I think we saw the down game last week. He's going to get more this week out of that. And like you said, a better matchup than for Anderson. Murray, I think there's a pretty good chance Murray could get one of those goal line touchdowns tonight, but it's kind of a wait and see. I hate playing that game of what running back's going to be in there when it happens. So I think I would probably play Callaway as well. Yeah,
Callaway is definitely the safest play. And if I'm going in week 2 of the season, I'll go with the safe play. The home run hitter play is Robbie Anderson because
no doubt,
the dude could easily just have like 2 catches for like 200 yards and 2 touchdowns, just to, put a hypothetical up there. But I think Callaway is definitely the safer play. And that's what I would do at this point of the season. So great question. I love getting questions like that. We also have a question from Kessick3. How are we feeling about Cortland Sutton? Well, we got the injury last week to Jerry Jeudy. And of course now Sutton's still coming off the injury, but he's an electric player. We'll talk a little bit about our sleepers here in a minute. I know Adam probably has at least one Denver Bronco on his team. So I think Sutton's a great play, especially now that he looks like he's almost fully healthy. He's a big, tall guy. He's a big target for Teddy Bridgewater. I like Cortland Sutton this week, especially. I like him as a high-end flex play. or even a wide receiver 3. But I think Sutton's going to have a good year in fantasy. I think he's probably going to end up probably just outside the top 25. I like Cortland Sutton this year. What do you think, Adam?
I like Cortland Sutton a lot this week. I like him a lot over the year. He's a great player. I like his size. He's got a lot of physical traits. He's able to go up and get the ball. This week, I like him a lot versus Jacksonville, though. With Jerry Jeudy going out again, there's more targets to go around for him, and Noah Fant, I believe, are going to be the biggest benefactors of that. So I like Cortland Sutton a lot because I like the Broncos a lot to score quite a bit versus Jacksonville today. So I'd fire Cortland Sutton up today.
Yeah, I agree. Cortland Sutton's, you got to start him with this matchup. I love it. But I know we're getting the questions starting to pour in, but let's finish things off with our sleeper starts of the week, and then we'll get to the chat room questions. So if you have them, keep putting them in the chat room. We're going to answer them as soon as we get through with this sleeper section. But Adam, let's lead off with yours. Who are your sleeper starts of the week?
Some sleepers I got. We just mentioned the game. Teddy Bridgewater versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. Teddy Bridgewater had an under-the-radar pretty dang good game last week. I think he threw for around 250 and 2 touchdowns, and I really don't see any reason he can't do the same versus this Jacksonville team today. So I think Teddy Bridgewater is a great streaming option if you need it, or daily fantasy, or like a guillotine league play, a deeper league play. Teddy Bridgewater should put up some points today, I think. Another one, and I might be crazy for saying it, is Sammy Watkins. I know every time you pick Sammy Watkins to do something, he seems to get hurt or put up nothing, but they're going to need to throw the ball tonight versus Kansas City to keep up. Watkins looked pretty good in week 1. He tends to look good the first couple of weeks of the season. I think Lamar's going to need Watkins and Andrews to step up tonight to make plays, and I think Watkins can be a big sleeper this week. My last one would be Devin Singletary versus the Dolphins. Look for Zach Moss, I believe, is going to be active today, but I'm not sure what his role is going to be. Singletary is pretty good out of the backfield catching the ball. I think they're going to need him underneath versus the Dolphins today. Dolphins have a good secondary, so those little dump-offs and stuff could be valuable for Singletary today.
Yeah, no, I think so too. I like Singletary. I think he's the better back for sure. And, I love all those sleeper picks, man. It's fun in fantasy when you bring up one of those names and they go off. So we'll start tracking that to see how we do. Yeah. But let's dive into my sleeper picks of the week. And I'm leading off with a guy that's, I'm playing for the Cleveland Browns and Jarvis Landry. No Odell Beckham Jr. Going up against that horrible Houston secondary. Like I said, I expect the Cleveland to get up big early, and I think Jarvis Landry is going to have a huge first half. I expect him to easily go over 100 yards today with a score, probably first half into the third quarter, and then you won't see too much of him after that. But I still think it's enough to have a big day. Tyrod Taylor, I love him, for Houston going against the Cleveland defense. Tyrod's a guy that's virtually unowned in fantasy. He put up a pretty good game last week, and he finally has grabbed hold of a starter role in this league. It only took a freak accident last year for the Chargers to put Justin Herbert on the field, and now he gets his opportunity. I do not expect him to miss out on this opportunity. And last but not least, you just mentioned him a little while ago, Adam. I think Latavius Murray is a great sleeper pick to start against the Kansas City Chiefs. I think he's going to get at least one goal line touchdown, and he might get over 10 carries. So if by definition, he's the perfect sleeper in fantasy, and he is one of the lead backs down there. And again, look at this. Zach Moss is another healthy scratch today for the Buffalo Bills. Makes you wonder what's going on there, if he's in the doghouse or maybe if they're looking to trade him. But either way, Devin Singletary now, his stock is even higher. All in on him there. We're starting to see the inactives list start to pour out a little bit. I know we talked about it a little bit earlier, so we'll let you guys know as anything super pressing is announced in fantasy. But yeah, Zach Moss, wow, we both thought he was going to be active today, Adam. Makes you wonder what's going on back there in that locker room. Well, curious your thoughts on what's going on with Zach Moss.
I have no clue, but I am definitely curious because he's been a pretty decent player when he has played. He's definitely been pretty good inside the 5 and 10 for them. And I know he's had a number of health issues, it seems like, but Yeah, I'm really curious to see why he would be a healthy scratch because I was expecting him to be active, maybe just in a smaller role today.
Yeah, that's a surprise for sure. It really makes me feel like somebody's going to be inactive in this game. So I mean, not inactive. Somebody might be trading him. Um, I'm sure there's a lot of teams looking for running back help. Maybe it's the Ravens. Who knows? But as I said, my last pick, Latavius Murray. I expect for him to have a real big day today. And at least for a sleeper, I think he's going to put up at least 15 fantasy points, which by definition is a great sleeper start. So that's where I'm going with it. I like both of our sleeper plays this week, and especially in deeper leagues, some of these guys are available to just go out and grab. I'm also going to add James O'Shaughnessy to that list. I know I talked about him a little bit earlier for the Jaguars, but I do like him a lot, especially against Denver. He's going to be that safety blanket again for Trevor Lawrence. Like I said, he had 8 targets last week, 6 catches. So look for him to be a big part of that game. And Kessick 3 also calls out that Dalton Schultz had a lot of targets with Dallas last week. Yeah, that's another guy that's owned in not that many leagues that could help you out. Dak likes him, but both of those tight ends got a lot of targets. But then again, Dak threw the ball 58 times or something crazy in that game. So I don't think they're going to throw it that much this week, especially with the matchup. But maybe they will. If they throw 58 times every single week, then yeah, Dalton Schultz will be a fantasy stud.
So will Blake Jarwin.
Yeah, right. But it's almost like the 2 tight end sets for the Patriots back in the day. But we'll see what happens. We got a question here from Greg Churink. If I say this wrong, I apologize. Greg Churinkin. He wants to start 2 at PPR: Gaskin, Henderson, Waddle, or Mitchell. Well, I talked about Gaskin being a sit against Buffalo because they shut down, everyone that they face on the ground. I love Elijah Mitchell this week. He's one of my starts of the week against the Eagles. We talked about Darrell Henderson being a great play as well. I do like Waddle this week too, but if I had to pick because of the volume these guys are going to get, Adam, I think I would go with Henderson and Mitchell. Out of these 4, who are you going with?
Yeah, for me, it's no question Henderson and Mitchell. Both are going to get the volume. Henderson can see the passing work as well. Like you said, I really do love Waddle, but I'm taking the running backs that are going to get the carries and possibly passing work as well.
Nice. I'm with you. I think that's going to work out for Greg here. But Greg, nice job. You got 4 quality guys there. In most leagues, you wouldn't be able to put them all together on the same team. So I think week to week, you got a lot of good options there. So nice job drafting, Greg, first and foremost. Our buddy Travis said he had Tanyan last week and got no points, so he wanted to try Komet. But per our recommendation, he grabbed O'Shaughnessy and dropped Michael Carter. Probably good because Carter, those running backs for the Jets don't seem to have much. You can never figure. It's like trying to figure out the old 49ers backfield from 5 years ago without Frank Gore. Who's the other guy? You never know. So. I like that. I like O'Shaughnessy. Yes, I do, Travis, like O'Shaughnessy against the Denver defense because it's a safety blanket. And I think that's what Trevor Lawrence, especially as a rookie, is going to look to a lot. So hopefully I'm not wrong on this one. I do feel good about O'Shaughnessy this week, though. Our buddy Perry Lambright has a question, Adam. I'll let you field this one first, and then I'll answer second. But take it away.
Waddle or Nelson Aguilar is the question here. For me, this one's Jalen Waddle, hands down. Nelson Aguilar has looked good for the Patriots. We saw it. I believe he got a touchdown last week, and him and Jacoby Myers are the 2 guys. Myers is the number 1 in my opinion, but Nelson Aguilar is a close 2. But Jalen Waddle's just an explosive playmaker. He's got the chemistry with Tua already from college. We saw it in week 1. We mentioned Will Fuller being out again. This will be Jalen Waddle for me 100%.
Yeah, for sure. And I think they're going to have to use him they're going to have to get the ball out of their hands quickly to Waddle, especially against this Buffalo pass rush. So I think the kind of game plan just really benefits the player that Waddle is. So I think Waddle could easily have 6 to 8 catches today. And hopefully he's got some good yard after the catch. But, I mean, obviously he's an explosive player. So I think he could do it. He's a great play today in fantasy. I do like Aguilar too, but I just think Waddle's a better play. So that's where I land on that one. Good question, though, Perry. Appreciate it.
Yep.
And do not hesitate, guys, to get your questions in here. I know we're going to start wrapping up here in about 10 minutes or so, but keep the questions chugging in. But I did want to touch a little bit on the game tonight, Adam, and that's, for me, might be the game of the week.
Yeah.
In Chiefs at Ravens. I know there's not any inactives out for it yet, other than that there's a defensive end out for the Ravens and Derek Wolfe. But this game tonight, I mean, you want every piece of it, right? I mean, for me personally, there's not a lot of guys that I'm not touching. I think Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown could have another big day here too. The tight end's going to bounce back. I think there could be like 80 points combined in this game. Neither defense looked great last week. Do you still think Kansas City can pull away with this game?
I don't know. I mean, they can pull away for sure. I think it'll be fairly close, though. Like you said, I think I want all of my Chiefs and Ravens are going to be started tonight. With the exception of, maybe like we talked about Murray, if it's like a flex option, I'd consider him in that spot, depending on my other options. But yeah, the Ravens and Chiefs game should be, to me, it is the best game of the week, like you said. My only concern, I would temper expectations for CEH in this game, and really, I saw a lot of people, talking about CEH after week one, and he's a good player, but he doesn't fit the Chiefs' offense as well as I think people thought he was going to coming in. Andy Reid got a lot of people worked up with those comments about Brian Westbrook and stuff last year in training camp. And CEH is good, but they just have so many weapons in the passing game. It's like, why would you hand it to the 5'7" running back when you've got Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill flying down the field? And, I just need to temper expectations with CEH, but this is going to be a high scoring game. And like I said, I love Mark Andrews in this game. I think Watkins could have a big game, and we know Kelce and Hill will.
Yeah, I think I'm with 4,000 Clovers in the chat. He says, I think the Chiefs will crush them. The Ravens are washed. The offense isn't washed, but the defense appears to be. So I think the Chiefs are going to have a big day. I think fantasy-wise, though, you're going to want everything except for the two defenses. So I love that. We're starting to get some more questions, popping in here. So let's take one here from Alec Horrell. He says, full PPR, Juju or Brandon Cooks. Start two. I'm sorry. PPR, Lockett, Juju, or Brandon Cooks. Oh, man, I love all three of these guys this week, actually. I would start them all if I could, but I guess if I had to, based off matchups only, I think I would go with Lockett and Juju. But, man, I like Brandon Cooks. He got a lot of volume last week. But, man, it's close, but I think I'll go Lockett and Juju. Adam, where do you land here?
That's where I would go as well. I would go Lockett and Juju. I love the Seahawks I mentioned earlier in this game. And as you talked about with Juju, I think in the PPR format, he's going to get quite a few targets and catches. He's always got the chance to break one. I'd go those guys in the better offense.
Yeah, I agree. And then he follows that up with one more. Tanyan or Hooper, half PPR. I think it's Tanyan against the Detroit Lions. Personally, I just think he's got a better chance to score. He's a red zone threat for Rodgers. And I believe Tanyan had a couple big games against the Lions last year. So, I don't love either this week, but I think Tanyan is the better play of the two. Adam, what do you think?
Yeah, everybody, don't be scared to play your Packers this week. I know week one was rough, but they're going to bounce back. This is the Detroit Lions. I'm putting Tanyan in over Hooper.
Exactly. And then we do have a little bit of breaking news coming out of that Saints game this afternoon. We talked a little bit about it earlier, the 7 head coaches that are out and their starting center, but the defense has taken a hit. Cornerback Marshawn Lattimore and safety CJ Gardner-Johnson are inactive today. So in addition to a starting center, 7 coaches out. You've got 2 key defensive players that are going to miss this game. Of course, the Carolina Panthers stock has to go up in this game. They were originally big favorites, the Saints, but, losing that many coaches, losing some safeties, losing a starting center. This is a lot of things to overcome. So I think I like the Panthers in this game. Now, I don't have to tell you to start, Christian McCaffrey. I think he's going to go off here, but look for the Panthers to have a big day. This is huge news, Adam. I mean, you got to fire up some Panthers today, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. And with those guys out, that definitely makes me think a little more about the Robbie Anderson we talked about earlier, making a big play. And yeah, DJ Moore's got to be in your lineup without question. This definitely opens this game up a lot. We know McCaffrey's going to have his game anyway, but I mean, those are big losses for the Saints defense, along with the coaching staff you mentioned. This definitely makes this game a lot more friendly for the Carolina Panthers offense.
Yeah, I like Carolina to win this game now. And for those of you betting folk out there, I think the money line on them was like plus 150 or something earlier. So if it's still there, I would scoop that up. This could be an easy upset today now. So just keep an eye on that. That's going to be exciting. So I just wanted to bring that up because it affects a lot of fantasy players. And we still got a couple questions coming up before we wrap things up here. We're going to start wrapping in about 5 minutes or so, but we're going to hammer as many questions as we can. So let's dive in. We got another question from John Kessick. Can you see Antonio Brown being Tampa Bay's best receiver? He probably is going to be getting the best matchups. Adam, what do you think on this one?
I definitely can see this. I'd look for AB to have a monster game again. I think all the Bucs receivers are going to be safe to play, but Antonio Brown burnt Atlanta last year, I think 2 times, I believe, at the end of the season for like monster fantasy points. And I'll be honest, I'm personally going to start Antonio Brown over Chris Godwin in one of my lineups.
I mean, I love it today. I mean, both of those guys looked dynamite last week, by the way. I mean, you could argue starting both, but I mean, I'm not of the camp of starting 2 wide receivers from the same team. I kind of got bit in the butt a little bit last week because I have Antonio Gibson, Logan Thomas, and Scary Terry on one team. So that kind of negatively affected me. So I'm going to have to rethink about my team every single week. But yeah, I could definitely. I think Antonio Brown could be the number 1 there when all's said and done this season. And we're gonna go quick fire. Here we go. We got another one coming in here. Let's see. This one's from Ron Rupp now. Thielen, Godwin, or Jamar Chase in his family league. Man, this is tough. I do like Jamar Chase today against that secondary.
This is a very tough call.
But Godwin he looked amazing last week too. I'm not touching Adam Thielen. He looks like a shell of himself. I'm avoiding him wherever I can. So for me, this is between Chase and Godwin. Man, I got to look at my own rankings to see what I did on this one. But I have Jamar Chase at number 24, and where do I have Chris Godwin? I have Godwin at 17. That Falcons secondary is bad. I think you got to go Godwin here. It's close. I love both of these guys this week, but I'm going to go Godwin. Adam, where do you land?
I would go Godwin as well. This is really, really close, and this is a good problem to have for Ron to choose between these guys. But I'd take the security of Godwin. He's got the experience. We know Brady's going to spread the ball around all those guys. It's just the better chance for it to be a good game for Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Godwin had some good-looking hands last week. I expect that to continue this week as well. We got another question here from Bars in the Tuck. Thanks for tuning in every week, Bars. We appreciate it. Afternoon, happy week 2. Full PPR, pick 2. CEH, Damian Harris, or Eli Mitchell at Philly. Wow. Well, Adam and I are pretty aligned on this one. We are both not big fans of CEH. We think he's just a middle of the pack running back, probably going to rush for like 50 yards, maybe, and maybe get 1 goal line score. That's about all you can expect out of CEH. These other 2 guys, I think you could hit home runs with them. Damian Harris, going to catch a lot of balls out of that backfield against the Jets. Eli Mitchell, I fully believe this kid is the workhorse back for the 49ers. Over Trey Sermon, because why else would they scratch him last week? I'm going to keep my eyes on that to see what happens this week. But I do think Eli Mitchell is going to get at least 15 carries today. So I'm on Damian Harris and Eli Mitchell here. Adam, I know you're aligned with me, but talk a little bit about why you don't like CEH.
Well, I mean, like I was saying a minute ago, there's too many weapons in Kansas City's offense. Patrick Mahomes, he doesn't want us to turn around and hand the ball off 20 times a game to CEH. He wants to throw it down the field to Hill, Kelsey. They just have so many weapons outside of the running game. And we've just seen CEH just doesn't get the touchdowns enough. I think he only had 5 all of last season. He had nothing last week in week 1. We talked about how much we love Damian Harris already. And, Eli Mitchell should get the bulk of the carries today. So I would be playing Harris and Mitchell hands down.
Yeah, all day bars in the tuck. It's a good problem to have, but I definitely would go Harris and Mitchell today. And let's see where else we got in terms of some questions here. Aldo mentioned that he was going to start the Saints D after their performance versus Pack, but he had to drop them for the Seahawks, and I don't necessarily blame him there. I don't think the Saints defense is going to be that great today with missing all those coaches and those corners. I think the Saints are probably going to. I'm curious to see how the line shifted on DraftKings, so I'll have to check that out in just a minute. But I think the Panthers are going to be the favorites now. So I think that's smart play, Aldo. And I did want to point out too that coming up today, lots of content here on the Barroom Network. You got Bear football, the halftime report coming up at halftime of the Bears game, and then of course immediately after the game as well. So you can get all the Bears coverage you need. Boom, right there. And then you got Greg Gabriel talking football on Monday, 2 p.m. in the afternoon. He's the former scouting director of the Bears, and he brings all his insight to the table. That's absolutely great stuff. And then, of course, Monday night, this isn't football related, but you do have the South Burbs Hitmen with me and the boys talking about the Chicago White Sox, who are probably going to clinch a playoff spot early this week. So you're going to want to stay tuned for all that. Tons of great content, of course. This week you got the Barfly Tailgate Show. You also have the Friendly Confines, the Mike North Advantage, Dan and Aldo Bear Their Souls. The shows just go on and on. Bulls Gold. I forgot to mention our guest tomorrow night on South Burbs Hitmen is Salim Suter-Waller from the Bulls Gold podcast. So we'll be talking all things White Sox. And, of course, Adam and I will be available on Twitter to answer questions as they come up throughout the day. So do not hesitate to reach out. Make sure you give Adam a follow at Papa Bear 816. You can follow me at Joe Mandel, and then you can follow us both at FFB Goon, where we're going to answer fantasy questions all season long. And it's been a ton of content coming in this morning. We got a comment here from 4,000 Clovers. Really appreciate all the content, Aldo. Absolutely. We appreciate it as well. And we have so much to cover here on the network. It's a great problem to have. You've got so many things you can listen to all day long. Just make sure you head over to the YouTube page and click that subscribe button. Or if you listen to the podcast version, go to either Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Spotify, and hit that subscribe button as well. We really, really do appreciate it. John Kessick says that we rock, and we think you rock, John.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, we appreciate that, man. And we're going to have this content coming your way all season long. And we appreciate you all hanging out with us all at, the last hour and change, getting you ready for kickoff and fantasy. Adam, I know we're going to get rolling here in just a second, but before we do get off the air, got any last-minute things you want to highlight or any shout-outs you want to make?
I just want to say thanks to everybody that tuned in this morning to ask questions. Like you said, we're happy to help everybody today, all day long, and all through the week. When you're getting ready to figure out that waiver wire, don't hesitate to shoot Joe or I or the Goon a message on Twitter, or just hit us up anytime you want. We're always available. We're happy to give advice. That's what we're here for. Thank you again to you for having me on, and to Aldo for everything we're doing. I can't wait for a long day of football, and especially that game tonight. And go Bears!
That's right, go Bears! Quick shout out to everyone in the chat room, and then my wife and my dog Maverick. I love you guys all. And for Fantasy Football Goon, I am Joe Mandel. That's Adam Sean. I said it wrong. Adam Sham. God bless America. God bless football, and let's kick some ass. Go win some fantasy matchups. We'll see you guys next week.